Zelda, and welcome to Mud and Blood, a podcast dark and grim, and welcome to Valley of Blood, our actual play series, in which we play the game Warlock in my own setting. I've had requests to explain a wee bit about the world and provide some context to this world that we find our characters in. Valley of Blood is a setting of my own, and has been campaigned in with several different groups for over a decade now. The main concept of the setting is its low fantasy, basically a mundane reality. Think Warhammer without magic or the various other races. There is one or two elements that aren't exactly like our own world. Primarily geography and religion are quite different, and occasional hints at the fantastical, but for the most part it was a world where I just wanted to partake in late medieval sort of Call of Cthulhu style investigations, really, and that's what this was born out of. If you think of the setting more or less as Europe set in the 30 Years' War era, you're pretty much there. Although, because the southern hemisphere is best hemisphere, I've set this continent in this world south. So as you get south, things get colder, and as you go north, things heat up. The player characters are currently in Svelsing, a small frontier state, think Romania or other parts of Eastern Europe, that was previously a part of the Nicean Empire, and is now squashed between this old empire and Strussland, which is the land from which the player characters all originate. I'll go into more detail about the geography, religion and politics of the world in the next episode. So for now, our players continue their preliminary search for the missing bishop in the cold, damp streets of Sinistad. I hope you listen in and you enjoy yourself as our player characters seek out somewhere to sit down and go over all the clues they've gathered thus far. So put your feet up, relax, and let's get into it. So, you've managed to find a tavern, which even at midday has got a bit of activity going on. People are sort of taking a break from work and coming in for a midday ale and a bite to eat before getting back to it. You are still in a nicer part of town, so it is a more sort of upmarket tavern, but it's not in sort of full night mode yet, so there's not like musicians playing or anything like that yet. So you're currently sitting at a table off to the side. You've still got Frederick with you. You're still accompanied by Maynard as well. Frederick seems to be enjoying having lunch on the company dime currently, and the rest of you are sitting around. In the middle of the table, where you can all see, is Maynard's rather good recreation of the sun that was found on the ceiling of Freda von Hoffman's bedroom.
That's pretty good work here, Maynard. Didn't date you for a bit of an artist, but damn good.
Yes, old boy. Well, the life of a young noble growing up is filled of such pursuits and education and experiences. All stuff you wouldn't understand.
So, who wants to take the first guess as to what was going on here?
Well, what I would say is that it's pretty obvious that the wife is doing something sketchy. Possibly a convert. There might be some other foul business about, but it seems very suspicious that she's obviously noticed this thing and she hasn't said anything. So something must be up. If all this has been caused by her heretical behavior, I have to call it that. It's caused by something else, I don't know. But it's clearly suspicious, is it not?
Well, for where it was sitting in the room, she would have had to have been aware of its presence. And depending on if they shared a room or not, he may not have. And then he finds out that that's there, he flips his shit, and
Here's another thought, though, old boy. What if he did know? And all this preaching, it's all a lie. I have worked for her brother. She is a lady, and the Archduke. Unless the apple's fallen far from that tree, you can see he's being very careful to not talk poorly of someone related to his employer.
Yeah. Well, it is. How long have they been out here for?
Years?
Ain't
Decades.
that hard to believe? They've gone a bit. Not to put too fine a point on it. Native. Happens. Seen it before.
He sort of turns around and is like, "Staff, here!" and calls over one of the working girls. And he sort of turns the picture on the table towards her and sort of prods it with his finger. "Does that mean anything?" And she sort of looks at it and goes, "It's like a rather pretty picture of a sun." "Alright, you can go now. Doesn't seem particularly native to me, old boy."
I mean, you look a certain way. We've been here a while. They know the sort of things they can talk to us about. That ain't. What I'm trying to say is that, people talk to nobles a certain way, mate.
"Well then, mate," and he picks up the picture and pushes it into your chest. "You go fucking ask the help. Go on, be with your kind."
I just take the picture and roll it and put it in my...
Just
In
don't
good
let the
time, I will.
bishop find you with that picture, boy.
Boy. Quizzical. He's very old.
Victor is
Lorenz is-
46, so he's older than your character, I think.
Actually, yeah, fair point. Everyone's old. Everyone's old.
I'm not.
Oh, child. You'll be referred to as child.
He sort of looks at you and goes, "So, what are you waiting for?"
There's a time and a place for these sort of things.
Normally when you're instructed by your betters.
I'm here on a job.
He's decided that the world is easier if we pretend you don't exist. And he looks towards the others. "So, do you have any intelligence ideas at this table?"
Well, as I said before, Maynard, we've found this servant girl, Cook, that might be useful.
Okay.
If you can find them and
And
talk
the-
to them anyway.
Well, we will. I don't want to spend any longer in this clap-infested hole of a valley than I have to. What about the church? The priest?
Oh, hold on. So, that girl that, oh shit, what was his name?
Frederick.
Yeah, the girl that Frederick was talking to. She said that they were there for a matter of minutes, in and out. That's a lot of room tossing for a matter of minutes to not find anything.
She also said that the night before there was a bit of a racket. I'd assume that the room tossing was whoever was making that racket.
Yeah, okay, fair.
If you can find someone who might be able to identify those people doing the racketing, we might be on our way to finding out a solution, huh?
Here's a question, old boy. In your experience, I'm sure there's been a bit of acquiring of local assets post the work that we do. When you do such a thing, looking the way you do you find the locals are in a hurry to sort of come forward with
No.
information about you?
No. Because they don't want to be killed by my men, no? But
Right.
finding someone who either hates these mercenaries or whatever they are enough to tell us, or that would be willing to impart some information based on coinage.
Well, look, I tell you this much. There's a reason I was asking her about the sashes. There are a couple of fellas down on the docks that look a little out of place for mercenaries. Well, they look like mercenaries, but look like a different sort of mercenary. You catch my drift?
Yeah, I noticed them. They're clearly more competent than the rest. Clearly some sort of experienced band that might be doing some good work. Well, good work, but they're clearly good at what they do.
Well, Freddie's contact there said that at the front had the sash on, part of the uniform of those dudes on the docks. So, what company are they? Who they work for? Are they under special employer, the prince, or nah? Sort of fit the pattern.
Well, unless they're all nobles, to be armed in these streets right now, they must be working for the state.
Which sort of makes you think.
Well, here's the thing. You can work for the state and work for someone else at the same time. That's common in this business, as you well know, Maynard.
Yes. The politicking of the lesser-blooded.
Ha!
Well, so, where next? And he looks over at Frederick and kicks him. What do you know about these red sashes? He just shrugs. Mercenaries are all mercenaries to me, boss. No offense, you two both look the same to me too.
Are you blind, boy? You're clearly not very useful in this capacity. Who would know?
Probably pissed off both of you by saying that.
Yeah, probably.
Well then, what's next? What's the next plan? And here's my other question. Clearly we're going to have to go to this cathedral. Do we get the priest or not?
I mean, there's official and then there's unofficial, right? We can go in an unofficial capacity and then tell them about the time we're going officially.
I'm sure the bishop won't mind a few more hours of stuffing his face with whatever it was that he was eating over there. If we want to go have a look before we ask him to have a look...
if we happen to be in the neighbourhood and we all want to have a little bit of a prayer session, that's our business.
Where is this cathedral? He's looking again at Frederick. He goes, it's across the river, like, in the slums. And you just see the look on Maynard's face. It's just pure fucking disgust at the thought of going over there.
Well, you can stay, Maynard, if you want. I'm sure we can make do without you.
We're quite happy to be, your humble servants on this matter.
Well, actually, in this matter, I think you should be my humble servants. So, we've been together long enough now, right?
Yeah.
How long is long enough?
Well, working off and on together probably over the last, I'm guessing, few years.
Yeah. I mean, we said we had some sort of previous history of co-employment.
Yeah, so with the comment that she just said, you would possibly remember times where she has outfit for the clergy to be able to get into the churches. Get in and get out easily enough to be able to figure out what needs to be figured out.
I mean, are we doing a bit of theatrics like? Is that what you're suggesting? A bit of theatrics?
Of a sort.
Right. I'm gonna have to,
I mean, as a former lady of the cloth.
I might have to go get changed then.
Well, you could probably use it. It's been a long couple of days for you.
One potential issue with the plan that you'd all be aware of is that there's not a hell of a... Unlike, say, where you're from, there's not lots of churches to your particular god. There's one in town. So you might stand out as not being part of the thing.
Might not be part of the local team, but part of the team as a whole.
I mean, this is a busy trading. There's lots of trade going on.
I mean, a local, a traveling priest showing up is not all too uncommon, as long as we just don't show it off as being one of the people that are always there.
Hey, I'm thinking of doing some missionary work from a wonderful god.
Anybody who was at the docks would have known that there was a new bishop with his retinue in town.
I just arrived from the homeland. I wonder if you could help me find some... Yeah, it could work.
Yeah.
So Maynard would be like, well, why don't we just go in there and ask them?
It's a rare thing. It's a rare thing that I agree with you, Maynard, but I actually agree here. If we just go there and ask, they might just tell us. I don't see the point with skullduggery at this point.
And the only reason I could see for such a masquerade is if we think the church is in on it. Which
I think it's more we might think, at this stage could be a little bit of both. Don't know where this web leads.
Well, so what do you propose?
Well, we got 3 things, right? We got talk to more servants, see what they know about the relationship in the household itself. We got checking out the church. Had one other thing. I can't quite remember what that last one was. Or maybe there wasn't. Maybe it was only 2.
The red sashes?
And then we got the mercs. But to be, in all honesty, I think we can deprioritise the mercs right now. That's something that we can sort of, should be pretty easy to figure that out through official channels.
Right, so what part of this travelling priesthood retinue that you're putting together will be played by the skilled mercenary and the other one?
Well, protection, obviously.
And that's the idea that I had. I don't know how a priest would be able to hire me, to be honest, but there we are. And especially not me and my dear. And I look at him like, we both look pretty ornate and expensive.
Well, I would gesture to Maynard. You kind of stick out. I would recommend you staying back at the embassy.
Yeah, look, you're not getting rid of me that easily, girlie. I suggest Victor and I go and talk to these servants. You go there, and we meet back here in, say, 4 hours?
I mean, saves us
Is
a
that
bit of
enough time
time.
for us to...
4 hours must be enough time to enact a simple plan like this, huh?
I don't know how long your services normally take, but 4 hours is a bit of a stretch.
Well, sundown then.
Yeah, why not?
I think that should work.
Well,
Right. We'll have Frederick here. He could go with you. A local guide. Traveling missionary. Someone that we can trust. Keep an eye on you.
Yes, of course, it sounds like a marvellous idea.
Yeah, I kind of look at Lorenz side-eyed at that. It's like, I don't fully trust this Frederick kid.
Right. Well, now that the heads of authority have prevailed, let us get on with it. And you, he points at Lorenz, you need to find out about that picture, remember?
Oh, yes.
Right. So he's ready to bounce. So we'll deal with what's this whole plan at the church? let's talk this through and what your plan is.
Walk across the bridge, go to the church, ... profit.
The plan is, Liam, that we're going to walk in there and you're just going to spill the beans on the whole mystery, and we'll cut this actual place short.
Well, we head over there. We'll have the image of the false icon, and maybe go in almost like inquisitors of a sort. Okay, how is this allowed to be rampant in our city?
It's not your city.
My city.
One issue with that would be that if you were to ever return with the priest, obviously they'd recognize you.
I mean, there's an element of Lorenz might just want to go in there and just sit through a service and observe and talk to people in the congregation while Veronica goes and does her thing with the actual priesthood. That's something that Lorenz would feel is more in keeping with keeping low key, not rattling the trees too much, and just acquiring information. He wouldn't go as Lorenz, he'd just go as, like someone that's just got off a boat, because he has, but he's just gonna adopt a different gait, a different manner, and all this to sort of throw people off. They don't put two and two together that he's part of the from the delegation or whatever. That's pretty much all he is really concerned with. Whether he's thrusting things, accusations from the church, he doesn't think that's something that he would be very good at doing.
Okay. So you're not really dressing up and pretending, you're just going in as a commoner and just...
Yes. I'm pretending, but I am a commoner, so it's not really pretend. It's just
going
adopting
in and sitting through a church service.
Yeah.
Okay. You'd know that, understandably, because it's a sun god. There's services most days happen at sunrise and sunset, with a large one once a week at midday.
On a Sunday?
A Sunday, exactly. That's not happening in this. It's not a Sunday. However, you could go there. Obviously, they're always open during the day. They've always got stuff going on, but the main things tend to happen at sunrise, sunset. So that would be a bit of a problem, considering you agreed to come back at sundown. But we can retroactively assume that you pushed that out a bit beyond that. But yeah, those, if you want to be at an actual service, that's the time you'd have to be there.
Are there any churches around that aren't like they aren't the Solaris faith, they're the Eastern faith? Like, are there any churches?
There's heaps of them, especially over in Old Town.
I'm going to sort of look to Veronica and be like, and also might figure out significance of the old drawing of our bloody wonderful friend over there. Sort of casting back as I guess we're walking out to do our own things. If we hit some of the other faith, the local customs, so to speak.
See if that aligns with anything that they have going on.
Well, I'm thinking if there's a religious angle to it, it actually might be the better place to be.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an idea we can chase down as well.
And would kind of love to pick your brain about the local stuff compared to, what's doctrinal back at home. Might be good for you too, so you can spot things more readily if we see them going forward.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't think it would be a good idea if you. Well, actually, I don't know. Maybe to take the opportunity to try and convert you. If you were to go, as a member of the cloth.
No, I probably would not. That'd draw just a little too much attention if anybody's actually watching us.
Right.
So we might save that for tomorrow. Today we'll focus on the cathedral itself.
Yeah, fair enough. Just a thought I had on the way out.
So, I'm going to push you for a plan. What are we doing?
Well, Lorenzo said what his plan is at the church. He's just going to get changed.
Yeah, so
he's probably going to go find a tailor and buy some more local, less good quality clothing.
yeah, I would go back to wherever my stuff is stored and get my disguise.
Okay. So you're basically just dressing up as an initiate of your church. That's the outfit you've already got. Cool. And Lorenz is looking like just a bit of a peasant. I will say this: Frederick isn't getting changed. He's going along, just looking like a guy.
Right, Frederick.
Well,
Frederick, you're gonna be with Veronica. You ain't gonna be with me, mate.
All right, sounds good. Wrong, Frederick. All right, sounds good. There we go. All good. Okay, so you guys make your way through Old Town, and yeah,
I'm actually on the lookout for the symbol as well, by the way.
Okay.
Everywhere
so
I go, I'm on the lookout for that symbol.
You make your way through Old Town, and this time there is a slight wee bit more open hostility on account of you having someone wearing the wrong religious garbs walking down the streets. Not aggressive towards you, but a lot of looks. A lot of dirty looks, a lot of interested looks. You stand out a bit, and you have no doubt that this was something that Hoffman was probably dealing with every day, walking through here in his garb. As you approach the bridge is actually off a large sort of town square with a large monument in the middle, and there's also a local sort of church, a very large one, here in the town square. And you notice that the big monument has a carving, a statue of some figure that you don't recognize. The writing carved into the plinth is also in a language that none of you can read. It looks to be quite possibly Nissian. And there is a figure standing on the top of this plinth who looks quite regal, and above him is a sun and a moon. The moon is a crescent shape, whereas the moon in your own faith is normally presented as a full moon. And next to it is the sun, which is just a circle with 4 beams coming off it, but they're sort of wavy, right? Like this, and they sort of taper to points, right? And that's over top of him, the moon and the sun side by side, sort of illuminating him standing there with his hands outstretched, looking like a magnanimous sort of hero, if you will. You have heard that in your particular version of the faith, the moon and the sun are portrayed as brother and sister, both protecting the world from Urius, which is darkness and evil. In their version of the faith, the moon and the sun are married. They both sort of interplay together much more closely, and it's less the strong son and the weak sister, and much more the duo. It's a very important thing that the two of them are portrayed, almost as equals, with their own sort of role to play. And this is sort of shown by the way they're presented. One over his right shoulder is the sun, and over the left shoulder is the moon. And then the large church has the same sun iconography, sort of resplendent off each of its spires. So if you imagine like when the roof comes to a point and then there's like a icon attached to it, it's that same four-beamed sun on every point, with a large brass one above the door. So it is quite different to your, similar but different. You know, where you come from, the moon is a full moon and it's just a circle basically, whereas the sun is a circle with the 8 points coming off it in straight lines, with the 4 cardinal points, up, left, right, down, being longer than the ones in between. Imagine like a compass almost. That's sort of what your sun's normally presented as. And in fact, when compasses are drawn, they're drawn that way, as like everything under the view of Solarius. So you're going through this market square where you've got this big plinth in the middle. Like, if you've ever been to Trafalgar Square and you've seen Nelson, imagine that. And then all around, like there's the hustle and the bustle of the city, and a lot of life is going on here. And you actually blend into the crowd, even though you get the occasional sideways look, you sort of do blend in. And then you come to this new bridge, and you can tell it's new. It's, you know, again, the architecture immediately reminds you of home. You can tell that they've probably imported engineers from your nation to help them build it. And it can't be more than a few years old. It just doesn't have that grime. The stone still looks too clean, even though it's got a year or two of weathering. It doesn't look like utter filth yet. And around you, you've got the smell of the market. You've got people selling their wares. There's cooking going on. There's food. There's entertainers. The whole thing's going on. Then you have this long bridge, and the bridge stands starkly in contrast with the market. Upon it, about 2/3 along towards the other side, you can see a checkpoint where there is a number of soldiers, most of them of which appear to be these ones with the red sashes. Everyone approaching this checkpoint has to line up, and they appear to be getting searched as they go across, and a lot of them are paying tolls as well. And you very much get the impression that a disconcerted effort is being made to isolate the Western Bank and the beliefs and everything else that comes with that bank from the old town where you currently are. And it's frankly a sign of misery as you sort of approach. There's a lot more people trying to get in than get out. And the people getting out are clearly people who work in Old Town but return home to live over on the West Bank.
Are they handing over like documents to prove that that's where they're from, or like what's...
No, there seems to be a discussion with each of them. If they're carrying large bags or bundles or anything, they get looked at. Any of them that look particular, well, mostly the men fighting age males are being searched for weapons. Things like that. It's just like a frisking. You do see some people having like the contents of their bags and things tossed or tipped out where they can view them and stuff like that. But there seems to be a concerted effort here to make sure, not for the people who are leaving, not so much. The people who are leaving, they pay a toll and they leave. You know, although you do note that everyone who goes through is being spoken to, and someone is keeping a record of who's coming and going. But people coming in are under very intense scrutiny. So, are you crossing the bridge?
Well, I guess if we're going to do this, we can't avoid this one.
Well, I mean, it's getting back. It's going to be the issue, isn't it?
Possibly.
I mean, you look the part of a priest anyway, so... I'm just a humble dock worker.
and then our guide.
Well, Freddie, how have you gotten back in the past? They giving you much grief?
Nah, mate, I've got a diplomatic community. I just got to say who I am, where I work, they let me through.
Well, then maybe you can vouch for us when we get there. Make this a little bit easier for us.
I doesn't quite work like that. It's got to be individualistic, like. But normally, I mean, we don't come over here too often, but when I have, it's always been with one or two of the other staff. We've come right through. We've said who we are. They write it down. They make sure we're not armed till they let us on in.
What I'm saying is, if worse comes to worse, just identify yourself on the way back. It ain't a big deal. I mean, we got it too, you realise.
He's not worried. He knows he'll get through. It's you fellas he's worried about.
I mean, we'll get through if we identify, right? Like,
So
it's just that
you
it'll
guys
get
go
noted.
across?
Yeah.
Cool. So they've put up, as you approach, there is a rope barrier through the middle, which is sort of dividing the bridge. It is quite a wide bridge, and there is also clearly provisions made, like all the barriers are temporary so they can move them probably when wagons and things come through, if they do. So they clearly have some sort of provision for that sort of thing to happen, but it is quite a wide bridge as well. For the most part, as you approach the checkpoint, like I said, not many people are trying to get out. It's mostly people getting in. And as you come up, they sort of look at you. They don't even question Veronica. They clearly just write down priest and let her through. And then, Frederick comes up and they say name and they write it down. They say address, and he writes that down. As soon as he says, Strassland House, the guy who's writing it, the scribe, sort of looks over towards one of the people who are there, and one of the mercenaries in the red sashes, who sort of peers at him and then nods. Right, clearly making a bit of a mental note as to who it is or whether or not he recognises them. And then they come to Lorenz.
Well, I'm back, like, just before. I'm seeing that exchange, and I'm probably familiar with this. I want to see if the dude that eyeballs him looks at anybody. Like, if he turns, eyeballs him, nods, and then looks somewhere else, or does any signaling at all.
No, doesn't.
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah, as you come up, someone looks up and goes, "Duh, name."
Lorenz Tauschen.
And they write that down. It's
Tauschen.
It's sort of, you see him write it down phonetically, and then he looks up and he goes, and address.
Strassland House.
He writes it and looks over at the other guy, and the other guy looks, and he looks at you for a while. I'm trying to think if there's an appropriate role here. Let's make it persuasion, shall we? Roll a persuasion, but it's at a negative 4.
-4?
Yeah.
It's 8 then. 13, so that's a fail.
The guy comes over. He actually looks at you a bit more closely, and he actually reaches out and grabs a hold of your jaw to sort of turn your face and look at you. And
I sort of
like
eyeball towards Frederick, like.
And he sort of looks at Frederick, and Frederick sort of like, oh, he's with us, like he's from the house. And the guy, whose grip's quite firm, he's got leather gloves on. He sort of looks at you again, and you can see he's got scars all over his face. and quite big, long, droopy mustache hanging from his upper lip. And he sort of looks at you and goes, what is your name?
Lorenz. Tauschen. Thought you described the same thing.
Right. And what is your address normally?
Well, I'm from out of town. I'm back in Strassland, so I'm here.
Who's your lord?
Well, I'm a Kaisersman, I am. I work for the diplomatic service. I'm a new addition to the embassy, like.
Can you write?
Yeah?
He sort of lets go of you and he turns the piece of paper around and points next to where your name's written. Your mark. Scroll it there.
Scrolls a very workman-like signature that looks like he signs documents a lot. So he has an easy signature to do quickly.
He sort of looks, he doesn't really look at the scroll, and he sort of points over to Frederick. And he's like, he's with you. He messed up, it's on you. And it's like, Frederick's like, and then he grabs you and pulls you away, and you're through. But you can tell, the guy who's watching everyone, he's got,
it's fine. We're not here to trick them. We're here to trick the priests. Like, this is the opportunity to get there, because they're not going to have like a signaling station where they're like setting a signal fire going, hey, people are here.
No, of course.
So it suits. And having looked at him and seen he's not signaling anybody off in the distance, it satisfies me. I am like looking to see if we've picked up tails, though.
No, it seems like it's just they're noting people who come through of interest. Yeah. As you could expect, insurrection is happening actively within the country. So they're, and you make your way towards the end of the bridge towards the slums. This is where I'll cut back to Victor. So Victor and Maynard making their way through Old Town with again a much more pleasant experience. They haven't got nearly the level of scrutiny or even the busy streets that the others have as they make their way through town to the address that they were given for the old cook. Without even, as soon as you get there, Maynard just goes across, just bangs on the door with like the air of someone who's used to people doing what he says. I mean, you're a commander, you've got a similar thing. And
sorry, go on.
No, you go on.
So what I was going to say was, like, before this, when we're walking down the street, Victor would sort of tap his shoulder, or more grab his shoulder, say like, so when we arrive there, I do the talking. You don't know how to talk to these people. And you will listen to me this once. But stay silent and let me talk. Interject if you need to, but you know as well as I do that I can talk to these people better than you ever can. So shut your mouth for once. Huh?
Is that alright, old boy? You got a pair of knackers on you after all.
Telling you that this situation requires a more subtle touch from my position, not yours.
And what position would that be, old boy?
You know exactly what I'm talking about, you noble prince.
Oh, you see, I'm not entirely you. Could you please elaborate somewhat?
You know exactly what I'm talking about. You know my station. You know where I come from. You don't need to discuss this here, and you know it just as well as I do.
Oh, so this is a peasantry thing. Right. Okay.
Maynard can feel through his shoulder pad the grip on his shoulder tightening a little bit. Not enough for it to maybe hurt, but enough for him to know that he should stop.
The look on Maynard's face is one of pleasure. He goes, "Don't worry, old boy. I shall bow to your experience somewhat. Although I will say," and he leans in close, "if you ever talk to me like that again, peasant, I'll cut your fucking fingers off." And he leans back and slaps you on the shoulder. "But hey, what's a bit of fun between friends? Go on, old boy."
And he just lets it sort of slip, and then as he walks away and starts knocking on the door, Victor will say, "You don't scare me, you little shit."
Fear is something that comes with intelligence.
No, he doesn't say it audibly.
Okay. Well,
he doesn't say it audibly. Sorry.
That's all right. No, he goes up and he bangs on the door quite aggressively, and then when the door is answered by one of the help, Maynard's leaning on the side of the door with one shoulder, and he looks at the person who answers to him, and then just sort of looks back at you and sort of nods as a nod.
I approach, and Victor is like, "Yes, we heard your cook worked at the office of the old bishop. We're here to talk about that. On the order of Streisand, actually. You better find that cook."
The person sort of looks a bit sort of shocked and is like, and then Maynard leans in and goes, "Go on, run, little lamb." And the person sort of, backs away a bit. Because two fucking scary looking guys have just come and knocked on the door.
I am trying to imagine this.
Someone does appear who's like clearly, they're not really a cook in the sense of like they're like a chef. They're more or less like someone who clearly works in the kitchen. So they have an apron on, their sleeves are rolled up. You can tell they're clearly in the middle of presenting or preparing a meal. And they come and they're like, it's a she. She's like, how can I help? I hope I haven't done anything wrong.
No, not as far as we know. The only thing we need from you is some information about what happened at the bishop's house these last few weeks before what happened here. We are investigating the disappearance of your previous employer. Need some information.
Sure, what do you want to know?
Well, there was some ruckus the night before the disappearance, that's for one. And I'm sure you didn't leave your employment before the incident.
It happened on my night off. I used to work Tuesday through Saturday, the equivalent of in the game. I haven't named them. We'll just use those ones. Tuesday through Saturday, and it took place on Sunday.
That's awfully convenient, but I'll take it down for now. Are you sure you didn't hear any gossip afterwards about what might have happened?
Well, I went. It was Albrecht, the hand. He was the one that found them missing. He went and opened the door, and the place was a mess. And he called for help. The guard came down. They did their search, and he came and found me afterwards and told me they were gone. No one had seen them.
And there had been nothing of sorts? They didn't seem stressed or upset or particularly different those days or weeks before? No fights? No things to gossip about? I know how these things work. Servants talk. Servants always talk. Servants know. So I know that some of you will know something. Right? And this is clearly a little bit of a threat, right?
Yeah. I think it's more command than intimidate though. So make a command roll.
Yeah, I will.
It's pretty hard for you to fuck this one up. So that's largely why I'm getting you to do the roll, just to see if you do.
Yeah, that's a good 10. So that's a 26. So no problem.
Okay. She sort of looks around and goes, "Can we?" She indicates towards the side of the building. And when she does, you sort of see Maynard look over and go, yes, helper's entrance. I'm not used to these. And he sort of wanders around the side of the building, and she closes the door. And around the side, you meet her around, at the helper's entrance, and she sort of starts explaining that the two of them were estranged, husband and wife. They didn't really have much to do together. They used to eat at different hours, as he was always at the church at sundown, and was really around for dinner. So the wife would take dinner without him. And she'd been alone for years, more or less left in the house to, with only the servants for company. And, this kitchen maid liked her a lot. She was good, she was she was a good person, but she would often isolate and cry and keep to herself, and clearly was unhappy. The husband, on the other hand, was a pious man, and kept to himself, didn't talk to the help, didn't interact with the help, but always paid on time, always looked after, made sure everything was taken care of. It sounded like it was definitely a broken marriage, estranged heavily, but other than that, it sounds pretty normal. And then she's like, and then the lady started making friends, and she had people coming around, and we'd have to host dinner parties. I'd sometimes have to hire in extra help, which is how she got, how she got her current job. Was the people that she was getting in to help worked at this estate. That's for the last year. She'd have big parties, and we'd have to make extravagant meals and things. But they'd always happen in the late afternoon and be done before the husband got home, because he didn't like extravagance or opulence or drinking or fun.
What can you tell me about these friends?
Really
and just as a
know.
short interjection here, this servant, does she have an Eastern or a Western sort of appearance? Does she seem...
She's local.
Okay.
We didn't have too much to do with them. We'd feed them. They all seemed to be similar to her. Upper crust, money, wealth. Yeah.
From our country?
No, most of them were from here. They were local. There's not many of you people here.
I'm aware. That's why I asked. Now, and then I look at this girl, and I was like, are you aware your former mistress had converted?
Converted to what?
Well, fuck it. Anyway, converted to your faith, or something similar. Something not from my country.
I am far from an expert in your people's religion. It's not something I don't know anything about. She did have me make a cake or a pie one time with the crust resplendent like the moon, That was as a gift to the guests. The idea being that she was open to them and their beliefs coming into the house. But she was just being accommodating.
As far as you know, I'm assuming you never cleaned out her bedchambers? Though you're a cook, so I wouldn't presume.
No, that was all Albrecht's job. The day servant.
You know anything where this Albrecht resides these days?
No, he'd worked for both of them for some time. He was overseeing the house for a week or so after the disappearance, and he also disappeared. Just left. I mean, he was distraught with everything going on. I'm sure he just couldn't handle it.
Are you saying you didn't talk to any of your other servants about his plans at leaving, or feeling distraught?
We weren't particularly close. You see, he was from where you were from.
Aha! Oh, well, that's interesting. It's the only servant on the staff, like us.
We were the only two regular staff. There used to be more, but the Father Hoffman felt that too much help was unsightly.
I look at this person. Is there anything else you think you might be useful to know?
She checks her GM notes.
No, but like, yeah, it's sort of like you're saying, like, if there's anything else you want to tell me, then you can leave.
No, I mean, no, although Albrecht said that her horse was missing from the stables.
You think, and now I look at her quite closely, and like, do you think she left on her own volition?
I mean, I couldn't blame her if she did. Live that life, to have all of that, to have everything that we would never have, and she looks sideways at Maynard, to have all those things, and then the husband just take it away because it doesn't suit his image. I mean, you may not understand, but it's quite common for some of us to suffer for the status of our husbands.
Have my sympathies. However, this has been quite useful. And I thank you for your information. And Victor holds a coin out and like, thank you for taking this risk.
Yeah, she takes it and pockets it and goes, no, if anything to help, I worry about her.
We'll do our best to find her. Figure out what has happened here.
And yeah, she closes the door and leaves you to it.
And yeah, I was just gonna throw in there, like, just before she closes the door, like, if you ever remember anything useful, you can probably find us at Streisand House. But no guarantees. And then I look at Maynard and I'm like, see? It was quite a lot of information, wasn't it?
Yes.
Some suspicions have been confirmed.
I believe the matrimony was not the most harmonious. As for Freda, well, wonder where she's off to.
Well, these friends might know.
Aye, but, well, how do we find these friends, I wonder?
Well, if the powerful local friends like to spend time with the local bishop's wife, I'm sure gossip has reached people's ears. Sorry about that.
Naturally, old boy. Well, where do you propose we head next?
Well, that would be a place where these people would hang out. Must be able to find some courtier somewhere who has a loose mouth and a light purse.
Perhaps. Maybe Adolf knows something as well. He strikes me as a social.
Adolf probably knows all the people we need to find. I'm a little bit suspicious of his apparent... what would you call that? He doesn't have as much information as he seems capable of having. And if he does have it, he doesn't share it. I don't like this. But what the hell do I know?
Yes. Yes, what do we know? I suggest maybe we head back to Strassland House.
Yeah. Sounds good to me.
So, boots squelching through the mud. It seems to smell as if it's a horrible mix of effluent and dirt over in the slums. We cut to Lorenz and Veronica as they make their way alongside Frederick through the slums towards the twisted dichotomy that is this opulent cathedral, clearly built with funds greater than all of the hovels around it, up on a hill, standing iridescent with a large golden dome atop which sits the son of Solarius, as you know, in your homeland, surrounded as it is by shacks and hovels and houses decades beyond need for repair. As you make your way through the streets, here people live in abject poverty with nothing. The markets are pathetic. Everything here is just, it's depressing. Yet around that cathedral, around the reminder of how little people have, gathers what you could only be described as hope, as priests hand out bread to the poor and care for the sick in a way that really paints the duality between suffering and having means, having life, being, the vibrance that is community. So, as you approach this church, what is it that you want to do?
How close are we to the evening sermon or mass or whatever it's called?
You are, we're going to say it's about mid-afternoon, so you got a few hours.
What's the these are all locals, right? That are just...
Yes.
Yeah. And prior to the insurrection activity and the unrest, would it be reasonable to assume these people could come and go into the eastern bank of the city with a lot more freedom?
The bridge is
they would
very
probably
new.
still not be welcome in the really rich parts of town, but they could go into the old city, etc.
Quite possible. The bridge is very new, and previously, and you can still see there's facilities for a ferry. Ferries cost money, so there was probably a pretty good chance that there was a degree of geographical separation. And the ferry is one of those barges with a chain that they pull up out of the water to pull themselves across. So it's quite large and can hold lots of stuff on it. So even Yeah, and the bridge, the facilities on it that you used going through where you paid the toll, you can tell there was an element of permanence to them. Whilst all of the barriers and things that were set up were temporary, there was a building on the bridge for the purpose of taking tolls. So you have the impression that there has been at least a financial barrier to gaining access to the old town since day dot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because that sort of shoots down what I was thinking of doing.
What were you
Doesn't sound
thinking of
as
doing?
much. Well, you know, they're a little more open to the west over here because handing out food, etc.
I mean,
So they're probably more pliable.
You've certainly spied other religious buildings here, but none of them are quite to the same. They're much more subtle, humble, small little shrines and things. And they don't have nearly the audience that the big, opulent, wealthy,
Because I was thinking of showing around the paper for some of the destitute around here, and but if they don't get to the other side of town, there's not much point to that.
An experience would imply that people at this level of poverty probably can't read.
Well, it's not a reading thing; it's an image. So.
Right. Okay.
I mean, if it was a written essay, Liam, I wouldn't be going, does any of this ring a bell?
Oh, hold on.
It's a really nice
I
picture.
thought you meant the writ. I didn't realise you meant the...
No.
drawing.
I mean the picture of that Maynard.
Oh,
gave me.
there might be benefit of showing that around if you so wish.
I know that it's just... If they don't get to the other side of town as much, I guess it's a lower likelihood, but I'll probably still do it. I wouldn't be paying large money. I'd probably say there'd be like a couple of coppers in it, as opposed to being saying it's worth silver.
Okay.
Because if I say it's worth silver, I'm fucking asking to get mugged.
Okay. And what's Veronica doing?
Would Lorenz need me to accompany him around? Would it benefit anything?
He probably actually would, because it makes it look, if they like the church on the side of the bank because it helps, then having someone from the church is going to actually be quite helpful. He probably would have you along. He's like, I think this is a good opportunity to figure out about the local customs from a populace that may be more willing to listen to us.
Yeah, and it looks like we have some time before the evening sermon, so...
Yeah, see what the local take is on things. I often find those with very little to lose. They'll give you information if you give them an honest chance. The secret's to find the right people, though. And I'll just look around.
Yeah, take the lead on this, and I'll back you up.
And what Lorenz is looking for is, he's looking for people that are... He doesn't want people that are clearly extraordinarily destitute. He wants people that are, they...
Kind of like middle of the road?
Yeah, I mean, I guess you'd say average for the area, because he doesn't want to be going to people that are going to take what he's got and then desperately try and get more. He's just going to want to be like, here's an easy transaction for you, get you a little bit of money and move on, and it's best for everyone, just happens all the time in cities, it's bartering of information. But he doesn't want to be dealing with people that are either extraordinarily poor or look oppressive, like the ones that go around running gangs, for instance.
Make a streetwise test and add +2 to the result because you've got someone who appears to be related to the church hanging around with you.
Oh my god, this is so in character. Well, this is so on brand for me. I'm rolling terribly. 16.
Oh wow, how do you roll that? Because your streetwise is pretty good. 12, isn't it?
Yeah. So do you want me to list all my rolls? 4, 1, 5, 2. Those are my rolls today.
Now, you can always I believe, Simon, you've played Warlock before, right?
Yeah.
You can, correct me if I'm wrong, you can test your luck where you roll you roll luck, you lose a luck, but that means you can re-roll the roll if you like.
Yeah, you can do something like that. I think that's what we did with Ibram when we did it.
So
now, do you lose the luck forever, or is that you lose the luck for the session?
you lose it for the adventure, although I dare say that there's a good chance that 1 point of luck might last the campaign. It's not a particularly long campaign.
I don't exactly have a lot of luck to go on because I rolled a 1 for luck.
Sure, cool.
Hold on, let me check how much I have. Odds of me getting above a 20 with a roll of plus 14 is pretty high, so I probably will re-roll that.
You have to test your luck still though, so you have to get over a 20 with the 8 to get the re-roll.
Oh, fuck, there's no point. I'll take it back. No, my luck's terrible, so why would I test my luck?
Veronica really can test her luck for you if she likes.
She probably doesn't want to. Might just be we.
How much luck do I have? I have
9.
Where the hell is my shit?
Not much better than
9.
me. I mean, if you're rolling, I might as well. Well, if you're going to roll, I might as well roll because my luck's just as bad as yours. So
I mean,
I won't penalise you for it. Plus 8. 21. Exactly. Pretty much.
There you go.
What I need.
Now, so you get to have a second go at your streetwise
plus
roll.
14. 21.
There we go. Right, so it takes you a while.
Thank you. Roll 20.
That's how we'll treat that need for multiple rolls. It takes you a wee while, and you spend some time going around, and so you're showing it to people and offering coppers in return for information, right? Most people look at it and just think you're showing them a picture. There's definitely 1 or 2 people who try and sort of grift you, but because of your streetwise roll, you manage to figure them out. The ones who are like, oh yeah, that's some ancient blah 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 whatever, right? Like, or that looks like a drawing of the work of Hieronymus, whatever, you know, like. But eventually, you do show it to somebody who does recognize it. This instant look of recognition on their face, and they seem uncomfortable about it at first. And when you're asking them, they're not super keen, but the money's the money and they need the money. So they sort of discreetly tell you that you need to go and talk to old lady Ilda. Ilda. Old lady Ilja has a painting like that. Well, similar to that in her house. An old painting. But it didn't come from me. I didn't tell you this.
Right, and where's Ilja live?
They give you directions. Sounds like Ilja lives in a pretty rough part of the hovel.
Thank you. I'll slip him an extra couple of coppers. He's probably got like half a silver there now.
Yeah, they appreciate it. That's probably a week's pay for them. So they run off with it quite happy.
Because the secret's not to overpay as well.
So they make a move. And they basically told you, you head down that way, whatever, and gave you directions.
I look at Veronica and I quirk an eyebrow. I'm like, I think it's worth a shot. Have a look. Have a look about.
Yeah, it can't be any harm.
Got a bit of time to kill. Righto.
So, with this information, I think I should probably stash my churchly garb, which I'm assuming is kind of just like a a smock of sorts, like just a pullover with a hood or something.
Man,
I would have had my clothes on underneath.
Sure. Yep. Yep.
You've already done enough
It's
to
an
get
initiate's
defrocked.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it's an initiate's robe, so kind of lowest of the low.
Yep. No, that's fine. Yeah, you take that off and stash it away. Yeah, and now what do? Do you head down to old lady Ilja?
I think so.
So yeah, you now, unfortunately, the quality of housing here on the dock is somewhat determined by geography. The further downhill a house is, the worse the quality is. As you can understand, runoff and refuse makes its way down. And Ilja is at the bottom of the hill. She is down in like the shacks. It's horrible. You make your way down here, the stench of human excrement and refuse fills your nose. And people down here are living in as much poverty as you can live in, yet still have something to show for it. You know, they've still got their shacks. And as a result, there's this weird sort of feeling here where people are living in utter filth. The place is disgusting, yet people have taken pride in what little they have. And these shacks are tidy, they're kept clean, even though the streets around them are disgusting. The smell of just fucking sewage is pungent here. But the houses are kept clean, they've kept tidy, they have done everything they can to try and maintain their little neighborhood down here, including, you know, growing of herbs and things. And as you approach like old lady Ilja's place, there is a small garden growing out front, a quite vibrant garden, herb garden, with thyme and various other herbs sort of growing out of it. And as you get closer, you realize that, you know, this has the pleasant side effect of somewhat covering up the smell of feces that has been burning at your nostrils the whole time you've moved through here, as your boots squelch through the mud, where there's some gravel and sawdust has been mixed in to try and firm it up, but there's only so much you can do at the bottom of the hill. You know that you're going to need to give your boots a good clean once you get back across the bridge. And it's just a little hovel. It's got a peat roof out of which grows something, and a small door, no windows or anything like that. But there is smoke trailing out of a chimney, well, out of a hole in the roof that would be a chimney, implying that within somebody is currently there.
Could it be fungus? Can fungus grow out of her thatched roof or her
Quite
peat
possibly,
roof?
sure. What's that face? What are you laughing at? What are you laughing at, Charlotte? What's so funny?
Oh, I'm laughing at Sean.
I mean, people laugh at me all the time, but what in particular? Lorenz would walk up to the door, and he's going to turn and look back at both Frederick and Veronica, and he say, "These people don't have much, so respect what they got. Be on your best behaviour." And then Lorenz will knock on the door.
Frederick looks fucking disgusted, by the way. He's clearly stepping from stone to stone, and he's trying to keep his like, completely pointlessly trying to keep his shoes as clean as possible.
And Lorenz will look at Frederick and be like, "And wipe that muck off your face."
he's like, straight away rubbing his face like, oh no, what have I got on me? He's really uncomfortable by this. So you can see he's just focused on that, and you knock on the door. You hear a call in a language you don't understand, but it has the tonality of someone's like inquiring, kind of like a who is it. It's one of those, you know how sometimes we hear something and we know what they're saying even though we don't understand what they're saying. You can tell that this voice, this creaky old voice you're hearing, is asking who's at the door, even though it's in a language you do not speak.
Lorenz would just answer with sort of trying to match tonal Because he doesn't. He obviously doesn't speak Nissian. I mean, I know it's Nissian.
Yeah.
But Lorenz probably doesn't know what Nissian sounds like. So he's just going to match tonally. He's going to be like, friends, want to have a little chat.
Yeah, she sort of, the door opens and this woman opens that seems to be ancient in appearance. Like she is so bent over herself that she seems to be almost as horizontally tall as she is long, as she is vertically. Like she's just sort of bent over herself as she opens the door. And she sort of looks up at you. One eye sort of closed and sort of looks up and figures you out and sort of looks up and down and she sort of yells something out again in this language, but this is not you. She's yelling past you. And you hear a young child sort of answer, and she calls them over. The child comes over, and they talk briefly in the language, and then the child turns around and said, Lady Ilya said you'd give me a coin if I translate for her.
You spoke true.
She sort of...
Do a good job. There might be 2 coins for it.
As soon as you talk, even though she clearly didn't understand you, just the tone of your voice, she nods in like a knowing way, like she had you figured out. And she goes inside, and you can tell by her beckoning that she's inviting you in. And she immediately sort of goes over and starts putting down a kettle on the fire and starts brewing something for you all. And the boy says, Lady Ilya wants to know how you'd like your tea, and are your friends coming in?
Lorenz probably says Veronica will come in. Friedrich maybe just wait outside.
Cool. So you invite you both in, and when you come in, this is a small little shack, and there's the only lights coming from the door and a small little hole over the sink. There's clearly no running water or anything in here. She clearly cooks on like a open fireplace. It's a proper small shack, but she's kept it very tidy. Bushels of herbs hang above the fireplace where they're drying out. It's an interesting little shack. And so she natters away in her language, and you can see the kids sort of looking between her and you, trying to figure out how much she has to translate, because she's just nattering, talking. And he sort of looks at you like almost pleadingly, like, what, a bit uncomfortable.
Well, she certainly keeps a wonderfully tidy home.
The kid says something to her, and she turns around smiling, big smile, like, no teeth, just all gums, smiles, and she pours you out your teas and hands you your teas, and she sits down and then asks the boy, a question, and he's like, she wants to know why she is lucky enough for you to visit.
Just got some questions that we've thought perhaps someone with as much knowledge would have. Not that many people manage to live as long as you have in these parts. You're a fount of wisdom for those in this district.
The boy translates, you are far too kind and smooth for your own good. But Lady Ilya doesn't get many guests anymore, so she'll take what company she can get.
We'll be straight to the point then. Do you happen... Well, we've heard that, believe me, you're not in trouble. We're just trying to find information out. Do you know much about... Pulls out the parchment and puts it on the table. What this means? I haven't seen it before. As you may have noticed, we're from out west.
She takes the picture and holds it up, and like the little light coming through the hole in the wall over the kitchen. And she sort of looks at it, and she's squinting You can tell her eyesight's not the best. And she squints at it for a while. And she's sort of muttering to herself as she does so. And then she sort of gets a look of recognition on her face and goes, yes, I know what this is.
And what is it? We're a bit clueless.
She, the translate comes back. It's very old.
What does it represent?
There's a long pause while she clearly thinks about the best way to sort of answer that question. And she's really, you can see she's weighing up a lot of things. And then she comes back and just says, well, before there were empires, there were people who knew the value of light and dark.
Like, are we talking good and evil?
Perhaps.
So this is an old symbol. Why would it be, say, showing up recently?
Well, there are still people alive, are there not? Perhaps the imagination is still captured as easily today as it was then.
And what do these people believe about the light and the dark?
Well, she puts her hand out to the boy and says something, and he very reluctantly hands over the coin that you gave him. And she holds it up, and on one side it's got a very crude head of the Kaiser of Strussland. And she sort of points to it, and then she says something, and then turns around the other side where it has the it has on it like a coat of arms, and she talks about that. And basically the boy translates, you can't, when you look at a coin, you don't talk about the head on one side and the picture on the other. You talk about the whole as a coin. And she keeps talking, and you can see at this point she's thinking, remembering, and just reciting things that she herself has heard. She goes, these days people's minds are weak, and instead of looking at the whole, they instead act as if the coin has only one side. We always look at the one side, and life keeps going the one side, and we are taught to abandon the rest, not look at the rest. We ignore reality for the sake of perception. We embrace half the story because we are too weak to embrace the whole. And she just keeps going, and the boy after a while stops translating because it just starts to natter off.
Are there any people that you know could talk to me more about this?
She turns around behind her, and she sort of starts moving things around, right? You realize she's actually moving almost like a false wall that she has. Like she has a bit of wood leaning up against the wall, and she moves it. And behind it, she has what looks like a shrine. And on the shrine, it's a woodcut, or like a carving. Very old, it's cracked. It's the wood sort of coming apart. You can see she's having to lean two halves together that have clearly broken at some point. And you can see at the top there is the sun image like what you have, similar, different but similar, and then below you have the earth. You have like clearly like what looks like a horizon, and below that is an amorphous sort of strange shape with the stern face looking back, right, back up towards the sun, out of which comes like what looks like carvings of tendrils or maybe tentacles. And then in the middle, there's stick figures of 3 people between these two. She goes, no one, this is what the boy says, no one practices this faith anymore. This is an old faith. Last person that we encountered, or that she knew, was her grandmother. But she knows where this image is from, and she could guide you to it.
Is it in this side of town, or?
It is outside of town.
Now tell me, what does the 3 people in the middle represent?
She smiles a big gummy grin. It says us.
Significance of it being 3?
She shrugs.
Okay. I looked at Veronica and I'm like, well, this is theological. Do you have any questions about this?
Do I see any similarity between the drawing that we have and the sun that is there? Like, is it still just the 2 rays?
It's still got rays beaming out down towards the horizon. So it looks like this amorphous shape, which is looking angrily upwards, is sort of reaching up towards the horizon. And you know it's a horizon because it's curved. There's like trees and things. And it's like there's something reaching towards the horizon. And then above you've got the sun with like beams coming down towards, think of like the Japanese flag and how it's got the beams coming off it, the traditional rising sun. It's like that. You've got these beams coming down towards the middle where these people stand, seemingly on the earth. And the sun that's beaming down is looking down angrily towards the people as well. So it definitely is reminiscent. It is not exactly the same, like it's not a carbon copy, but thematically it's the same thing. You can see it's thematically trying to do the same thing.
I looked at Veronica and I'm like tapping, I guess, the bottom half of the image at the bottom, and I'm like, I mean, I don't know about you, but I ain't never seen anything like that before.
No, I would agree, but it kind of lends itself to what she was saying about the light and the dark. I mean, 2 halves of the same coin.
Now, in your faith, there is a 3rd deity, which is Urius, which is darkness and evil, the devil, effectively. But there is no symbology for that because darkness is the absence of everything. So the only symbology you've ever seen is the moon and the sun. And they're the ones that you worship. The same way Catholics do not worship the devil, but they believe it exists. In your faith, you believe Urius is real, but no one talks about him. You do not acknowledge him. You do not, it is the...
Which is really annoying because in this situation, I know what it is, but my character is going to be like, I ain't never seen anything like this, so I don't know what it is. A devil with tentacles? Don't know what a devil even looks like. Does a devil have tentacles? I don't know. Right, well, we'll definitely come back to you on going out of town and having a look at this place. But we wouldn't want to bother you with it today.
She sort of chuckles, and the boy listens for a bit, and he looks at you, and you can see he doesn't want to translate what she just said.
I give him a look like, I'm paying him, she's not paying you.
But she might be feeding him.
He has to
you
live
ain't
with
gonna
her.
get in trouble. I promise you, mate. I ain't gonna blow up at you.
He sort of, you can see him think about it, and then he says, she just said, as she suspected, too weak for all of it.
Right. Well, it's been lovely tea.
She sort of
He puts
nods and
Puts-
waits for you to leave, really.
Yeah, he puts 4 coppers on the table next to the teacup, and then hands 2 coppers to the boy.
They're both happy with that. That's a good day for them. And as you leave, the boy yells out, and she says she'll take you when you're ready, mister.
I nod at the threshold and then step out.
And then as you're stepping out, or you step out first, Veronica's going after, and then the woman says something again, a bit more softer voiced. And the boy sort of instinctively at this point just translates quietly that she wishes you luck on your journey, Veronica.
Kind of stop at the doorway and pause for a minute and kind of turn back and say thank you and continue on my way.
And that concludes this episode. Thank you for listening to Valley of Blood. If you like what you've heard and you would like to hear more, please head to mbcast.co for all things Mud and Blood related. We would like to thank Danheim for allowing us to use his music for the theme song of this show, as well as some of the atmosphere heard in the episode, as well as story blocks and tabletop audio for much of the sound effects and remaining music. We will return with episode 3 in 2 weeks' time. Until then, there'll be the usual Mud and Blood episodes in between, and you can find those at mbcast.co. We'll see you next time, whānau, and make sure your games are dark, gritty, and all that good stuff. Mā te wā.